Hello, my name is Zara Richards, and my EPQ, as most people would expect, is about languages. Specifically, the state of language teaching within English secondary schools today. So when I first thought about this, my knee-jerk reaction was very much, we're not in a good place. But I wouldn't say it's completely changed as we went through. I'd just say I found more information, which then gave me a broader discourse around the topic, and it's kind of influenced the reasoning behind my opinion. So before starting the logbook, I had two main areas I wanted to explore in an academic environment. These were languages, because I enjoy them, but I've been a scout for 11 years now, a long time. So I was interested in the opinions of people on the outside. And I came to three main questions, which were, to what extent are UK state schools effective in teaching a foreign language today? How greatly did the Norman conquest affect the English language? And is scouting an outdated movement? As you can see, I eventually chose the first one because I went to the World Scout Jamboree last summer. I camped next to a Finnish unit. They all spoke Finnish, Swedish, and English fluently, and one girl spoke French fluently on top of that. So me being me, English and some A-level French, I was very much amazed at that, but now I'm kind of thinking, why aren't we the same? Research-wise, there isn't a lot of research into language teaching as a specific. The most useful source was the European Survey on Language Competencies, which discusses foreign language proficiency in Europe. And how this was reported, there were tests done in 2 foreign languages that pupils studied, and the results were published, and England wasn't doing very well in comparison to other countries. So one of my goals in the EPQ was to learn more about people's attitudes towards studying a language, and this figure shocked me slightly. In 2019, the British Council found that only 38% of people living in England are fluent in another language. And the key point is they reported it as people living in England. So this can be influenced by immigration rather than people just learning the language at school. So after finding that statistic pretty early in the process, my aim then became to understand the situation we're in. I love languages, I've applied to study them at uni, so I find it quite hard to put myself into the shoes of someone who doesn't like languages. However, my research showed quite a lot of factors. So one thing that surprised me was, as someone who lives in a deprived area with low education participation, I shouldn't be here, let alone studying 2 languages. So the context of someone's education is something that really interested me, even though it was a small piece of my conclusion in the end. And another thing that helped was the national curriculum, as it showed what's mandatory for students to study at each key stage. So in junior school, you can study any language, so it could be classic or modern, and languages are optional from key stage 4, which starts in year 10. So that's why I initially focused on year 10 and 11 students, and I focused on state schools, as independent schools don't necessarily have to follow the national curriculum, but a lot of them do, which is why I had to change my title because there wasn't enough data to assess. So I decided primary research would give me a more personal view of opinions of people on whether the languages are taught effectively or if students are encouraged to study them as much as STEM subjects. I sent a survey out to people and local schools I had connections with, but I ended up with 2 sets of results. So that didn't go very well. It obviously was neither reliable nor applicable to all of England because the 2 people who replied lived relatively close to here. That was the point at which I changed my title. There's no state school specific research either. So I then moved to my final title, How Effective Are English Secondary Schools at Teaching a Foreign Language Today? So I could use independent schools here, but also this enabled me to do interviews with students at school, which was more accessible than sending surveys and hoping I'd get a response back. But there were still a few setbacks with the consent. I could only use 4 sets in the end, which is then I moved on to the research you can see here. I selected 1 state school and 1 independent school from each of the 9 English regions, and I then looked on their school website, freely available information, to see what languages they offered at GCSE. And from the graph you can see Bengali, French, German, Italian, Mandarin, Russian and Spanish. There are a lot of languages offered, but it's clear French and Spanish are the most popular. Even with my initial title, I found a lot of sources, but not were related to teaching, only exam results. These were another set of things I could use when I changed my title because exam results don't publish the ratio of independent to state schools. The British Council however, do a lot of research into this. They publish an annual language trend reports, which comments on the state of language teaching. So this is obviously most relevant to my EPQ, and I read the most recent ones to make sure my essay was up to date, particularly as Brexit 2016 has affected the future of languages. And the most useful within these language trends reports were the international engagement statistics, which counts whether schools take part in foreign trips, foreign exchanges, or if they have language assistants come into the school to help the students. The Languages for the Future report, also by the British Council, was most recently published in 2017, and it details the 10 most important languages for the next decade. This was another recent source I used because Brexit obviously had a large impact on the future of language careers. So this Languages for the Future report used 12 factors in 3 groups to choose the 10 most important languages, and they were Spanish, Mandarin, French, Arabic, German, then Italian, Dutch, Portuguese, Japanese, and Russian. So at Bablake, 3 of them are offered, Spanish, French and German, but you can only take 2 at GCSE, unfortunately. But all 3 that are offered are in the top 5, which is promising. But one issue is a lot of people drop languages, so they might not even become competent for business purposes. Particularly at A-level, this is quite prominent. I'm in a class of 4 for French. A lot of able students don't take languages because there's limited option slots, and choosing one subject over another could impact your chances of going in to the degree or the industry you'd like to enter. So my findings, it's a bit blunt, but I think it's true. We're quite drastically lagging behind in terms of language proficiency compared to other European countries. If we don't catch up soon, we'll be falling behind as Mandarin becomes more prominent and Brexit increases demand for linguists, particularly in international companies. I think we should make a GCSE in a modern foreign language mandatory again. Personally, I don't know why they were made optional, but now more than ever is the right time. I know a GCSE isn't total proficiency, but subjects are wider at that level, so it could also consider students to consider their future. So, for example, before I started my GCSE courses, I was set on being a psychologist, taking biology, chemistry, psychology A-level, and then I realised I found languages so much easier and much more entertaining, so now I'm applying to Cambridge for French and Portuguese, so not really a similar career path. Throughout the process of doing the EPQ, particularly the essay, a few mistakes were made, particularly with my primary research, as I kind of mentioned before. The target audience of my survey was so small at first, and I think I changed the title a little bit too late. So this had a knock-on effect. It gave me less time to receive responses, and it gave me more work to do in the long run with interviews. However, it kind of forced me to improve my time management, so it did make me prioritise things better. One thing I did well was the bibliography. I did it well as I went along, so I didn't have to go back and find all my sources on the internet again and put them in order in a last-minute mad dash. And I also finished my essay the week I was supposed to and stuck to all my goals. So overall, I think I managed the EPQ pretty well. In conclusion, English secondary schools, they're not incredibly effective at teaching a modern foreign language, but there's limited funding, there's limited industry support, so I think teachers are trying the best they can. And my research involved a lot of reading, but I wanted to highlight some more accessible sources. So I didn't use all of these in my essay, but I watched them all and they're quite poignant. One talk in particular was this Suzanne Telhouk's Don't Kill Your Language. She gave it in Arabic, which is her mother tongue, and she spoke about how she was looked down upon for speaking Arabic in her home country, Lebanon, which is where Arabic's an official language as well as English. So there's obviously a bit of an elitist attitude going on there. But my favourite point from that was language isn't 1, 2 or 3 words or letters put together. It's an idea inside that relates to how we think and how we see each other and how others see us. So having heard this, I hope you'll reconsider your attitude towards languages. Thank you for listening.